Most world cities have hundreds of years to grow and become what they are today, like New York City, London, Paris, or even Singapore, to name a few. However, the city of Miami grew to become an international hub of world trade in a little over a century, which made people believe there was magic involved. Nevertheless, the story of Miami, Florida is nothing short of impressive. In less than a century, Miami went from a small ocean town of 1,700 residents in 1900 to just over 5 million in the Miami Metroplex in 2005. This obviously had to have happened for a reason, and that reason is that it has the perfect geography to make the city a multicultural powerhouse and a hub of commerce, transportation, tourism, and housing. What specifically makes Miami's location on the southern tip of Florida become one of the leading cities in all the United States in a little over a century? Though the Spanish were able to establish St. Augustine in 1565 as the first successful colony on the North American continent in present-day Florida, the colony was far removed from the inhospitable lands south on the peninsula. Swamps such as the Everglades covering the majority of the southern tip of the peninsula, and natives roaming freely kept many from venturing farther south than the mainland. Even when the United States took over the territory in 1821, the vast majority of people living in the state lived within 50 miles of Georgia. The Florida Peninsula continued to be a frontier up until the turn of the 20th century. Only until 1920 would the land of the peninsula see a major boom in growth as the area became extremely attractive to those looking for vacation destinations and cheap land to sell. A boom the whole state would see when in 1924 the Florida state legislature passed laws prohibiting income tax and inheritance tax. Slowly, Florida's center of population moved from the northern part of the state to the center. With southern Florida becoming more attractive to people around the country and abroad, the population of Florida and subsequently Miami boomed. Furthermore, in the early 20th century, many immigrants from Central and South America moved to Miami specifically, adding to the Miami population boom. The state went from 34,000 people in 1830 to 528,000 in 1900 and to 15 million in 2000. The land that would come to hold Miami was initially not ideal for a city, as it is located on the southeastern tip of the Florida Peninsula, on a thin strip of solid land between the Atlantic Ocean and the Florida Everglades, a tropical wilderness that covers 1.5 million acres of land on the southern tip of Florida. Nevertheless, the land attracted thousands of people to live there. Those who would carve out a living in the Everglades would settle around Biscayne Bay in the mouth of Miami River, named after the native Miami tribe. The city was founded by a widow from Cleveland named Julia Tuttle, who moved to the area in 1891 and purchased 640 acres in the region. Miss Tuttle realized the value of the land when two brutal winter freezes hit the northern half of Florida 3 years later in the winter of 1894-95 and almost wiped out the entirety of the citrus crop. However, the freeze never affected the citrus crops in southern Florida, helping Miss Tuttle convince the Florida East Coast Railway to expand the rail line south to her area. This jump started the area's growth as it attracted thousands of workers to help expand the line south. A year later, the track was completed and the first regular trains began to arrive in the newly laid out city, which would be named after the nearby river, Miami. Though the railroad could be credited with the foundation of Miami, what really helped boost the city to become an international hub is its ideal geographic placement. Since Miami is located near the middle of the Caribbean, the climate of southern Florida is affected both by its geographic location near the Tropic of Cancer and the Gulf Stream in the Atlantic, giving the city a subtropical climate, with summer temperatures ranging from 77 to 91, and winter temperatures ranging from 62 to 78. The region is perfect for growing crops such as the state's favorite fruit, the orange. The abundant sunshine, regular rain showers, moderate temperatures year-round have attracted millions of people from all around the world who are looking for warmer climates, either for permanent residence or seasonal visits. Thanks to the ideal climate, tourism became a major industry for Miami due to a lot of people wanting to escape the colder climates for a lot of sunshine, long white beaches, clear water, and the Florida Keys that stretch further into the Gulf of Mexico. Because of the desired outdoor life, Miami is able to easily double its population during peak travel seasons from all the visitors flying into the city for outdoor adventures. The greater Miami area has attracted 2.4 million tourists in 2019, a jump from 23.3 million in 2018, and in 2019, the city had an economic impact of $17.9 billion from tourists alone. Because of the location of Miami at the southern tip of the Florida Peninsula, the city has become a hub of international air traffic, both for travelers and cargo. As the aviation industry exploded after World War II, so did the city of Miami. Its proximity to the island nations in the Caribbean, strategically located halfway between Europe and the United States northeast to Central and South America, has made Miami International Airport a gateway to the Latin American world. However, Miami's closeness to other countries was not the only reason why the city became an important air terminal. The city conveniently sits on the same circular Atlantic trade winds that Columbus used to sail to the Americas, the same winds that have become vital to transatlantic air travel as well, thus making Miami a strategic place for an air terminal for planes making the crossing. Thanks to the same atmospheric conditions that have made Miami a desired vacation destination, have further reinforced the city as an important international airport because Miami, and to an extent the greater Atlantic seaboard, is free of fog, which gives aviation pilots excellent visibility for flying. With the realization of the wonderful atmospheric conditions that have made Miami a strategically important city for air travel, it only takes an airline to attract millions of flights to the city, and this airline was Pan American Airways, which was based in Miami. This airline in the mid-20th century served the entire Central and South American countries, enabling millions to make the trip to the United States or further to Europe, cheaply and efficiently. The growth of Pan American Airways was huge. In 1 year, from 1829 to 1830, the airline increased its passenger miles flown from 5.4 to 9.1 million miles. Now, almost a century later in 2021, according to the Airports Council International, the Miami International Airport was ranked the busiest airport for international traffic in the United States, handling over 13.2 million international travelers and 2.7 million tons of freight that year, a jump from 2.3 million tons of freight in 2020, ranking the airport as the 11th busiest for international travelers in the world, barely behind one of its main destinations, Cancun, which is ranked number 10 in the world. The airline that dominates the Miami market today is American Airlines, carrying almost 2/3 of all Miami passengers. Most of its short-haul markets outside the US consist of Cancun, Havana, Mexico City, San Juan, and Santo Domingo, while American Airlines' long-haul markets contain Barcelona, London Heathrow, Madrid, and Tel Aviv. Along with the aviation industry that helped Miami grow, the shipping industry has helped the city exponentially. Ever since the port of Miami was first dug out in the early 1900s, it became an important port for cruise ships and international shipping due to its proximity to the shipping lanes that pass around the southern tip of the Florida Peninsula. Just as the city became a gateway for air travel to Central and South America, so has the port of Miami. The cargo gateway of the Americas, as the port is called, has become one of the leading ports for importing and exporting many different commodities in the United States. Out of the top countries that Miami exports to in 2018, 8 out of the top 10 are to Central and South American countries. In regards to all the countries that port ships to, a whopping 70% are sent to the Americas and the Caribbean, Asia being second with 14%, Europe at 8%, and the Middle East and Africa at 7%. For Miami's imports, 6 out of the top 10 countries are from the Americas. In relation to all of its imports, Asia is a leading region with 48%, in second place is the Americas and Caribbean at 32%, Europe at 17%, and coming up last is the Middle East at 3%. The port for shipping has generated the city of Miami in Florida almost $35 billion in 2018, but what really sets the port apart from the rest of the world is its cruise terminal, being ranked number 1 in the world and being called the cruise capital of the world. In 2018, over 1,220 cruise ships have docked at the port carrying over 5.6 million passengers, which have generated almost $43 billion of revenue for the port of Miami. All this is because of Miami's location on the southern tip of Florida with close proximity to the Caribbean island nations and other Latin countries further south, making the city an ideal port for cruise and cargo ships that travel the nearby waters. It is hard to talk about Florida, let alone Miami, without discussing the real estate market in the city. Everyone, especially right now, seems to be moving to Florida because of its climate, wealth-friendly approach to taxes, and diverse real estate market, especially in the past few years where many states have seen shakeups of population, net losses, or massive growth. Florida is certainly one of them. Sales were down only 2.3% in January, but that is with a housing market 16.5% smaller from the previous January. It seems buyers want homes in the region. There's only an estimated 1.6 months of supply in the housing market. That's creating intense bidding wars and increasing the challenge of trying to successfully win one and buy a house. Furthermore, the median existing home price increased 15.4% in 2020 to $353,300 at the end of the year of 2020. Low affordability and rising rates at the lower price point is yielding a high sales activity even in the pricey home segment, with sales above $1 million rising 39% during a time where the pandemic put an economic strain even on people looking in that housing price range. Some are crediting this to a large influx of Californians who, for various reasons, are leaving the state for another of a similar climate. But the fact still is there is impressive growth in the current Miami housing market, and to this day, it remains a highly attractive area. Miami's growth can be attributed to its location, both for its desired climate and a hub of transportation. The city has become a winter resort for those stuck in the winter climes who desire warmer weather during the colder months, which helped the city become a hub of travelers around the United States and abroad. Without the development of airplanes as a form of travel in the latter half of the 20th century, there would have been a big chance that Miami would never have seen the growth it experienced in the last century. Because of its ideal geography located roughly at the southern tip of the Florida Peninsula, with close proximity to travel lanes both in the air and water, has made Miami become an important gateway for aviation and seafaring passengers traveling to and from Central and South America.